Hello, YouTube. What I'm going to tell you today, I consider to be a significant event, but there is very little information about it in Russia, and virtually nothing in the West, which is not surprising to me. After we published Russia's USO Secrets, the book I co-authored with Philip Mental, he is a British researcher and writer, I understood the dearth of information about unidentified submersible objects in general and about Soviet, Russian, and Chinese cases in particular. So I continue my research, and you can see the progress in my videos. Please see the playlist I attached in the description of this video. Actually, there's more than one about the unidentified submersible objects and about the Arctic territories. You will see. But let me start with the background to this story. The White Sea is a southern inlet of the Barents Sea, located on the northern coast of Russia. It is surrounded by Karelia to the west, the Kola Peninsula to the north, and the Kanin Peninsula to the northeast. The whole of the White Sea is under Russian sovereignty and considered to be part of the internal waters of Russia. Administratively, it is divided between the Arkhangelsk and Murmansk oblasts or regions and the Republic of Karelia. The major port of Arkhangelsk is located on the White Sea. For much of Russia's history, this was Russia's main center of international maritime trade, conducted by the Pomors, seaside settlers, from Holmogory. In the modern era, it became an important Soviet naval and submarine base. The White Sea-Baltic Channel connects the White Sea with the Baltic Sea. The White Sea is a water-filled depression in the block of a continental shelf known as the Baltic Shield. Its bottom is very uneven and contains the Kandalaksha Hollow in the northwest and the Solovetsky Islands in the south. Also, Onega Bay has many small underwater elevations. The Northern Fleet is the fleet of the Russian Navy in the Arctic. The main base of the Northern Fleet, the Belomorskaya Naval Base, located in Severodvinsk, was founded in 1940 by order of the People's Commissar of the USSR Navy, Admiral Nikolai Kuznetsov. During the Great Patriotic War, or World War II, as it's better known in the West, the base was engaged in protecting the coast of the northern seas. The Red Banner Belomorskaya Naval Base is an naval base of the Northern Fleet of the Russian Federation, like I said, stationed in the city of Severodvinsk, that's the Arkhangelsk region. The base reports to the commander of the Northern Fleet. The task of the Belomorskaya base are ensuring the testing of nuclear submarines and nuclear weapons, implementation of the defense of industrial enterprises and protection of the White Sea Strait, operational, combat, technical, and logistical support for the combat and daily activities of ships and units of the Navy based in the base area. Provision of quartering, communal, cultural, and educational services for personnel in the area of responsibility of the base. In 1975, the Belomorsky Naval Base was awarded a high government award in the USSR, the Order of the Red Banner. Well, perhaps it was due to the events in 1974. You see, in 1974, the USSR conducted large-scale exercises in the White Sea. Reportedly, and the data is very scant, more than 5,000 people, several submarines, boats, ships, and aircraft took part. The maneuvers lasted almost 2 weeks, and during that time, two strange events happened that no one can explain. On May 12, 1974, That's the fourth day of exercises. Communication with the crew of one of the submarines was lost. Search and rescue activities were organized. With every passing hour, it seemed that the emergency situation would end in tragedy. However, a day later, the submarine surfaced in the East Siberian Sea. Of the entire crew, only 8 people, including the commander, were conscious. The rest seemed to be fast asleep. So later, the commander of the submarine said that they were performing the task, but at some point all the equipment turned off and the crew felt a nasty ringing on the verge of an earache. Even trying to plug their ears did not help. It was as if it was penetrating into the brain. One by one, everyone on board the submarine lost consciousness. A few hours later, the first submariners began to wake up. They tried to wake up the others as the instruments showed the incredible. In total, 8 people woke up and they managed to raise the submarine to the surface. All participants were taken to the nearest hospital where they were examined. Some experienced problems with the vestibular apparatus. One submariner died of a brain hemorrhage. The documents about the strange movement of the submarine 4,000 kilometers in less than a day are still classified. Information about the incident became public after several interviews with former sailors and submariners, including the captain of the submarine, Valentin Kozlovsky. But I could not locate information about that captain, and I do not believe this is his real name. Well, there was another incident during the May exercises in the White Sea. On May 19, 1974, an accounted-for vessel was spotted in the water area. It turned out to be a fishing trawler with a crew of 4 people. Moreover, the fishermen willingly surrendered to the Soviet military because they were in a state of shock. A few hours before the discovery, they were quietly fishing in the East China Sea. Then the fishermen remembered that there was a bright flash and the fact that now they were in the middle of the White Sea. Well, negotiations with the crew of the fishing trawler were difficult since it was from Japan. For explanatory work, so to say, those that were discovered, the Japanese, were redirected to Leningrad, where the fishermen were provided with an interpreter and they told about everything. At the same time, experts studied the catch of the Japanese and came to the conclusion that such fish are not found in the White Sea. In the absence of evidence of espionage or preparation for sabotage, the Japanese citizens were taken home with a fishing trawler. But I have never heard any substantiation from Japan, nor do I expect that it would be made public if they were taken to Japan. Unexplained things happen periodically in the seas and oceans. Spontaneous movements, time jumps, observations of unidentified underwater objects. Again, you can see it in my book, in my lectures, in my videos, and my information, of course, is mainly about the Soviet and Russian cases. But there are so many more. Despite the fact that such cases are documented and recorded almost every year, scientists have not been able to understand their nature. Perhaps at some moments that people experience, space and time are distorted. Then it's a natural phenomenon. But there is another hypothesis that the ships and submarines are influenced by representatives of another civilization. Maybe these are side effects of manipulations on their part. We just don't know. In general, something is happening. As I've been saying all this time. And the 1974 exercises in the White Sea are proof of it. We just need more confirmation of the events. How it's going to come out, I don't know. But let me tell you a few more things about this Northern Fleet. In July of 1958, the fleet included the first domestic Soviet nuclear submarine K-3, Leninsky Komsomol, which made a trip under the ice of the Arctic Ocean to the North Pole in 1962. I urge you to look at my videos about recollections of former Soviet top naval brass and the objects they had sighted with their own eyes. Inexplicable objects like UFOs and USOs. A year later, in September of 1963, for the first time in the history of the USSR, K-181 nuclear submarine surfaced at the geographical point of the North Pole. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the Northern Fleet underwent significant changes. Since the peak in the late 1980s, when there were more than 120 nuclear submarines in operation, in 2001, the Northern Fleet had fewer than 40 submarines in operation. In accordance with the decree of the President of the Russian Federation from December 15, 2014, the Northern Fleet has been withdrawn from the Western Military District. The border of the responsibility of the fleet has been expanded. The Northern Fleet Directorate has been reorganized into the Joint Strategic Command. The Northern Fleet has become a key element of the newly created Joint Strategic Command of the Northern Fleet, which includes all Russian armed forces located in the Murmansk and Arkhangelsk regions and on Russia's coastal islands along its Arctic coast. It is equivalent in status to the military districts of Russia. The Northern Fleet is responsible for operations and defense in the Arctic seas along the north of Russia, including the Barents and Kara seas, as well as on the northwestern sea approaches to Russia, including the Norwegian Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. The headquarters and main base of the Northern Fleet are located again in Severomorsk, Murmansk region, and auxiliary bases are located elsewhere in the Bolshoi Kola Bay area. The current commander is Admiral Alexander Moiseev, and he has held this position since May of 2019. In June of 2020, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree according to which the Northern Fleet becomes an independent military administrative entity, and that would be from January 1, 2021. Today, the fleet, according to Russian sources, of course, solves the tasks assigned to it in various areas of the world ocean and has completed tours of combat service in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, the Mediterranean, and the Gulf of Aden. Within the framework of strategic deterrence, the fleet's missile submarines continuously solve the tasks of combat patrol and combat duty in specified areas of the world ocean. The development and study of the Arctic theater continues, and the daily practice of trips by ships and vessels of the Northern Fleet to the islands of the Novosibirsk archipelago, Novaya Zemlya, and the Franz Josef Land archipelago has become common. The system of military infrastructure on the Arctic islands is being improved. There are future conflicts that are definitely are in store, but I'm not exactly sure whether the enemy is terrestrial, and you can see more in my videos. The development of new technology is actively underway, including that for other fleets. The submarines Yuri Dolgoruki and Severodvinsk, Alexander Nevsky and Rostov-on-Don, surface ships Admiral Grigorovich and Admiral Essen are far from a complete list of ships that have been trained in the harsh conditions of the far north recently. Approximately 2/3 of all nuclear-powered vessels are assigned to the Northern Fleet on the Kola Peninsula, and you can see much more about Kola in my videos. I mean, this is a tremendously interesting land. As for the Japanese and teleportation, well, why don't we add some more information? In 2013, a team of Japanese scientists managed to implement teleportation. It was actually a beam of light that was moved from point A to point B. For the purpose of that experiment, Japanese scientists divided the light into elementary particles, photons. They kept only one photon that carried information about the rest beam. This photon was entangled at the quantum level with another photon, which was located at point B. It turned out that these two photons instantaneously affected each other, being physically located in different places. Well, because of this phenomenon, the original beam was at the same moment recreated elsewhere using the information carried by the photon. It is interesting that the possibility of quantum entanglement of elementary particles was actually suggested by Albert Einstein. It was back in 1935, but even the physicists at the time considered his theory to be absurd. However, you see, subsequently, a number of physicists have agreed that quantum entanglement is real, and already in our time, some companies apparently have created technology of secure communication channels on the basis of this phenomenon. Very, very interesting, because some people believe that this phenomenon of quantum entanglement might be interpreted actually as evidence for the existence of plurality of parallel universes. Also, in the early 2000s, there was a Japanese physicist, Masahiro Hotta, at the Tohoku University, who took the idea further by suggesting that if teleportation can transmit information, then it should also be able to transmit energy. He went on to develop the theoretical foundation of quantum energy teleportation. Well, another Japanese scientist, Kazuki Ikeda, at the Stony Brook University in 2023, said that he has succeeded in teleporting energy for the first time using an ordinary quantum computer. All this is very interesting, but I hope one day we'll find out more about the 1974 incidents. And I will continue my research, of course, and if you like my research and you can support me, you'll find the links on how to do it in the description to this video. Please tell others about my channel. Please like my videos, and thank you for your attention to my work.